there's been a lot of pressure on KD to have an amazing bounce back game too. You heard talk of him having a playoff career high 50 something, and you've heard people talking about hammering the over with his points in this game. And to KD's credit, when Boston came out from the opening jump, they had a very clear strategy. We're not letting KD have that kind of night. The only time he ever was not facing a double team was when he had a live dribble out past the three-point line when he was crossing half court. But the second he put the ball on the floor and tried to get past anybody, here came the double. The second he came for a ball screen, here came the double. Anytime he was moving around off the ball, we're beating the hell out of him on every single off-ball action. We're grabbing him, we're holding him, all the same stuff that we talked about after game one. And I actually thought Kevin Durant was magnificent in the first half at not buying into that pressure to try to produce offensively as a scorer, but just playing basketball and taking what the defense was giving him. And Jason Tatum actually really struggled in his first shift in the first quarter with that exact same problem. He was getting a very similar coverage from Brooklyn. There were 4 stars in this game, right? Kyrie, KD, Jason Tatum, and Jalen. And Kyrie, KD, and Jason Tatum were all facing that same coverage. Just crazy sellout double teams every time they got the ball with any threat near the basket. Basically, as soon as they would get inside the three-point line. And to start the game, Jason Tatum was pressing and forcing and driving into traffic and just throwing stuff up at the rim instead of making the right reads. And meanwhile, Kevin Durant was just playing basketball and making those right reads. And as a result, the Nets got off to a really good start. But as the game progressed, Jason Tatum finally settled down and started taking and making the right reads as the game was progressing. And then in the second half, Boston, I would attribute it to 2 things, because Kevin Durant absolutely fell apart in that second half. He was 0 for 8 from the field. He had a bunch of sloppy turnovers. He's been mishandling the basketball in a bunch of situations, which is super uncharacteristic of a player as skilled as Kevin Durant is. But the way I look at it, there were 2 things that played a role there. One was the fact that when you're playing the role of the facilitator and you're making reads all game long, I think he only, in the first quarter and a half, he had only attempted 4 shots. So as the game was progressing, his own rhythm was suffering as a result of his playmaking. This is just the reality of the way basketball works. One of the advantages of double teaming a star and getting the ball out of his hands is he's going to struggle to get the rhythm when he does have opportunities to score. And I had a feeling that over the course of the game, Boston's defense would soften a little bit on him because of how well he was passing. And he actually did get some looks. But then what happens? Even the good looks you get are tough to make because you don't have your rhythm, because you haven't been getting easier looks to start the game. I complain about this with Laker fans all the time. They'd be like, oh, I can't believe another guard came in here and shot the lights out again. And it's like, he did because they let him get comfortable at the start of the game. So he felt confident, he felt in his rhythm, and he was knocking all his shots down. And the exact opposite thing was happening to Kevin Durant. And then the second part of it, you got to credit Boston's defense. When they are roughing up Kevin Durant to that extent, it makes it so that when he gets to those spots, he's fatigued. Now, all of a sudden, you're not getting as much as you're ordinarily accustomed to getting on those jump shots. You also start to kind of feel ghost pressure, right? Like Kevin Durant is 7 feet tall and he's getting to those spots. But when you're constantly in this swarm of bodies, even when you get to your spots and you're raising up, it's in the back of your mind that maybe Tatum's coming from behind you to try to take the ball away, or that someone you might not have seen is coming. Because one of the things that was happening with KD is he'd on the catch, Tatum would gamble around his body. Like if he caught the ball on the post somewhere, Tatum would gamble around his body and try to knock the ball away. And then KD would turn. And then as soon as he would turn, there'd be Al Horford right on it. Like they were swarming him everywhere on the floor. So you've got to give Al Horford a little bit of credit, or excuse me, the Celtics defense in general, a little bit of credit for how much they disrupted him. And it was by design. And so, if you're Boston and you're sitting in the locker room after the game and you're watching some film, the way you got to look at it is our game plan was to take Kevin Durant out of this game. He beat us with the pass in the first half, and then he fell apart in the second half. And that's the way it's going to go in a lot of cases. This is, to be clear, I still think Kevin Durant's the best player in the world right now. I have the utmost respect for him and what he brings to the table on both ends of the floor. But from 2012 to 2020, no matter how many times someone would bring up another name, whether it was KD in 2014 or whether it was Steph from 2015 to 2016 or KD again in 2017, 2018, or if it was Kawhi Leonard in 2019, every time I'd always step up and I'd be like, hey guys, let's chill out a little bit. These guys aren't as good as LeBron is. And one of the reasons why is because LeBron is essentially impervious to the type of game that Kevin Durant had tonight. Because if you try to rough him up off the ball, he's going to win that matchup. There's never been, not since the Pistons in 2007, have you seen a team kind of successfully rough LeBron up with physicality. That's a thing. That's a situation that he thrives in. And then in addition to that, and this is something you saw with all the stars today, with Kyrie, with Jason Tatum, and with Kevin Durant, they're wired as scorers, but they've progressed as playmakers enough in their career that they do start to make reads that are there because they're improving in those areas of their game, but their natural identity as a basketball player defaults to scoring. And so they're going to go off that script often, and they're going to try to do what they like to do. LeBron's the exact opposite. That's why he's received criticism in his career for not taking certain shots. In that environment, in that crazy environment with that over-aggressive defense, LeBron will persistently make the right read every single time down the floor, to a fault sometimes, to the point where he won't take advantage enough of scoring opportunities. But you have to take, every time a defense is aggressive, there is an opening somewhere on the floor, and you have to take advantage of that. That's why I've been preaching about that with Nikola Vucevic in this Bucks-Bulls series. Like, if they're going to sit and drop coverage all game long and take away the paint, you have to take threes. You have to do something to shoot them out of that coverage. And you saw that tonight a lot with KD and Tatum in particular. They would get off script, and they would try to do their own thing, even though there were opportunities there to continue to make the defense pay. And that's one of those situations that I hope people in retrospect have appreciation for why LeBron James has been so dominant and consistent as a playoff player in his career, because it centers around that. The ability to thrive in the physical environments, the ability to consistently make defenses pay for being over-aggressive, and this is the crucial part, he can do the KD and Kyrie stuff too.
So now that the Nets are sitting here and they're down 0-2 and they seem to just continue to underachieve what expectations were, certainly when this duo was put together on paper ahead of last year, or, when KD was actually able to play basketball last year for the first time. Steve Nash is catching a lot of heat. Do you think that's fair or unfair?
So I've seen this, and I disagree. I get it. I get that the Nets look like a pickup game offense, but I think it's a little bit short-sighted to think that running a set or running sets more frequently is going to solve this problem. And this is not a take that I have recently had. I've been telling you guys this forever. All of you guys that are listening, that have listened to my show over the last couple of years, I've always said that the value of sets becomes massively diminished in the postseason. And the reason why is physicality and switching. That's why I never cared that the Lakers were a bad half-court offense in the regular season. Regular season half-court offenses always are going to favor the teams that run sets really well. But in the postseason, it becomes brute force. Look at the way Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are having trouble navigating off-ball screens. Like, for instance, when they have Kevin Durant underneath the basket and he's being guarded by Jason Tatum, and they have Nick Claxton come down to set a pin-down screen on Kevin Durant, what happens? You have Jason Tatum hugging Kevin Durant, literally, and he's got to fight him off. Then as soon as he comes off of that screen, here's Grant Williams or Al Horford, whoever it is that's on Nick Claxton, he grabs KD too. I shared a clip. You can see it on my Twitter feed. You guys can see the specific play. Literally, now KD is fighting through a moving, hugging, whatever, cut check from Grant Williams before he ever gets up to get the basketball. That's what it's like trying to run actions in the postseason. I'm not saying that you can't do that to some extent, but the reality of the way postseason basketball works is it's such a shit show off the ball with the physicality that sets don't work. Not to mention with scouting, if you have a set that's working, by the time you get to the next game in the series, all of a sudden it won't. So for me, where Steve Nash has to figure this out is he's got to figure out floor positioning, where guys have to be on the floor so that when KD gets doubled, so that when Kyrie gets doubled, you can make quick decisions out of it and easily compromise the defense. So it's less about sets and more about floor positioning, finding spots on the floor that a guy can be a threat so that when Kevin Durant or Kyrie makes an easy pass out of the double team, it's a quick, bang, bang read to get an easy shot out of it. That is Steve Nash's job over the course of the next few games of this series. I don't think it has anything to do with running sets. So I disagree with some of the criticism that's been thrown his way there.